Alright lads, so jumping back into this month's Limit Breaker quest, I've been getting asked a lot of questions. What other characters can I use other than Riruka? Because she of course is the Limit Breaker character of the month. She of course makes this quest significantly easy, especially when put in slot number 1. But the thing is, I and many others didn't pull on the Valentine's Day banner because the banner isn't that great, right? You're better off saving your orbs, waiting for the next set of 1000-year Blood War characters. But with that, of course, if you don't have Riruka, it's going to be really difficult. So what we have here is 6 different teams for you lads to try out. Keep in mind, we are using very similar characters. Even though there are 6 teams here, we are still using pretty much the same, like 5, 6-ish characters. But these are definitely teams worth trying out. I tested it myself, and I was able to get to stage 19. Some teams even getting further than that, pushing upwards to stage 25. One thing I do want to preface though, for the most part, in most of the teams here, we are using 8th anniversary Ichigo. Honestly, there isn't really that many good replacements for slot number 2 when it comes to a power character, because the requirements here is that you have to bring a range power character or someone with Hollow Killer, and there isn't that many characters out there. There really isn't. At least good ones. Power is in a very bad state right now. There's not that many good characters in this attribute, at least powerhouses that could brute force their way through it. Luckily though, 8th anniversary Ichigo, you know, he's been guaranteed in banners on Brave Fest. He's a premium character. You might have access to him. But for this video, we are strictly using him in slot number 2. He's one of the characters that I found hard to replace. Keep in mind though, I do want to give a quick heads up though. Rukia is an easy replacement, someone that is equally as good in slot number 2. If you have her, I definitely recommend using her. For my account though, unfortunately, I don't have Rukia. So if I did, I'd be trying her out. I'd be trying out Ichigo. But for the most part, at least in the first 5 teams, Ichigo is the one character I just couldn't replace. With that said though, team number 1. This is pretty much one of the better teams you can bring if you are someone that doesn't own Riruka. So of course, Ichigo, best in slot number 2. We don't need to explain why we're using him, right? He's going to be really good here. And then slot number 3 is the flexible slot. You can realistically bring any character you want here. But since we are going against Heart No affiliation enemies, of course, Yuha Baha is going to be a character you want to put in slot number 3. He's going to reduce his strong attack cooldown in between stages. So next time he is available, all of his strong attacks are ready to go. But most importantly, he does allow you to get 2 soul bombs. Now, it potentially allows you to clear some of the more difficult stages a lot faster. For slot number 1, again, we are forced to bring a heart character here, so what you ideally want to do is bring a melee character with Hollow Killer, or bring a range character that, again, is a heart character. If they have Hollow Killer, better. If not, at least they are getting the ranged damage times 2. So we decided to bring Bruno in this case. He's actually pretty good here. Since he is getting the killer effect times 5, his damage output is somewhat decent. When he doesn't have the gauge active, you know, your damage output isn't the greatest. You are going to see yourself use a lot of strong attacks just to take down, you know, 1 or 2 waves. But whenever the gauge is active, you have the extra 100% Berserker, but most importantly, the SP boost. That's when you're doing significantly more damage. And with that, you know, you're reducing your strong attack cooldown. You're able to get through his stages relatively quick, and because we are using Ichigo and also Yua in our team, you know, they're clearing their stages significantly faster, so you can afford to be a tad bit slower on, you know, slot number 1 stages with Bruno and still get respectable play time. I believe this team was almost able to get upwards to stage 24, which is actually pretty good. You're hard stuck on stage 25, given that you're going to go against the more difficult stage with the poison enemies. But one thing I will say, since you are using Yuha with you, you don't really need to use your Soul Bomb on Ichigo stages. His Poise Break skill with the Vortex ensures that you're constantly applying weakening, and you don't have to worry about the enemies actually doing any damage to you, right? So since we are giving 2 Soul Bombs here, I chose the Soul Bomb with Yuha and also Bruno. But when you are deciding to Soul Bomb with Bruno, I would recommend doing it when you have the gauge active, since you do have the SP boost. That therefore means your damage is obviously higher since you have more SP. But if you can, follow up with like 2-3 strong attacks right away, so you can take advantage of the guaranteed weakening against any enemy. This team was able to get pretty far. Probably one of the better teams you can bring if you have all 3 characters. That then takes it into team number 2. The general idea is the same. We're still using Bruno in slot number 1. We're still using Ichigo. But in this case, let's say you don't have Yuha, but for some reason you have Kyogre. Well, of course, this team is going to work wonders too. The main reason why we are bringing him here is that, again, he can do quite a good amount of damage, right? Frenzy +2 with the Rampage skill, SP boost when you inflict the status on mint. But most importantly, he is reducing the strong attack cooldown for hard characters in between stages. And with that, it allows Bruno to have all his strong attacks ready to go when he is next available. And this is good for him because it actually helps him build up his gauge, right? I would recommend when using this team to always use your SA 3 and 2. I wasn't doing that straight away. You know, it took me a while to realize what I should be doing. It took me longer than it should have, to say the least. But whenever you can, spam all your strong attacks, maybe even sometimes use all your strong attacks, even when there are no enemies left. before going into the next room, just to quickly build up his gauge. So when you eventually get to the poised enemy stage, the more difficult stages, you know, you might only have to use 1 or 2 strong attacks before the gauge is already back. I don't think I've mentioned it just yet, but any character you are seeing showcased here, unless stated otherwise, is only performing at 1 out of 5, so only level 10 SP. Of course, if you are able to dupe out these characters, get their level 10 focus slot, that will be even better. If the character doesn't have long stride built in, I would recommend giving the character long stride. But for team number 2, it was pretty good. Just make sure you don't take any damage. More so with Bruno. If Bruno takes hits here, the run's almost over. Not entirely, to be fair, because he can heal himself when the gauge does activate. But you do want to be a tad bit careful, right? Ichigo and Kyoge have built-in drain, so they don't have to worry about taking any damage. Ideally, you don't want to take damage, but if you do, you're pretty much going to get back up to full stamina after just using 1 strong attack. This team was able to get to stage 19. That is the goal for all of these teams here. Get to stage 19 so you can get all the Transcendence points and, of course, also Spirit Orbs. Jumping into team number 3, right? In this case, we are finally taking out Swimsuit Rangiku. She's a character you can use in the other teams that we just quickly showcased. But Rangiku is surprisingly a really good character here. It shouldn't really come as a surprise. She does actually get all the rules here. She's a ranged character. She has Holo Killer, so she is getting the max damage output just like Riruka. In her case, though, one thing I noticed that was great about her is that her normal attack can also do a respectable amount of damage. And since she is ranged, you can actually sit back from afar. Don't let the enemies get too close. Use your strong attacks when you can. And when you're waiting for your strong attacks to come back, just use your normal attack string. It does do a respectable amount of damage, and it ensures that while you're waiting for your strong attacks, you know, you're slowly but surely chipping away at the enemy's HP. And the great thing about Rangiku, depending on the team that you are using and the characters, is that she does have built-in healing every time you move to another stage. So if you do take any type of damage, let's say near the end of a stage, you don't have to worry. By the time you next use her or any other character, they should be back up to full stamina. Although do keep in mind when using Rangiku is that she herself is not immune to the statism that you will see on this map, that being burn. So you do have to be a tad bit careful and position yourself correctly, but the burn pulls are really easy to dodge, to be fair. I didn't really struggle that much ever getting burned. Just make sure you stand in the correct places, use your strong attacks when you can, and with this team you should easily be able to get to stage 19. I haven't mentioned the character just yet, but we did decide to use 8th Anniversary White. Of course, no surprise here. He is going to be a great character in skill number 3, given that he is a mind character with no affiliation killer. High power soul bomb damage. Since he does have bombardment with weakened defense, SP boost, I recommend giving the character long stride so he can zoom from all his maps. And I believe with this team in particular, I don't think I even used the soul bomb. So that just goes to show there's some extra leeway, right? Maybe your links aren't as good. Maybe your characters do take any damage. Maybe you mess up at one part. Well, I didn't use a soul bomb. So if you do use a soul bomb on the correct point, you know, stage 18, 17, or 16, I believe, you should be able to have an easy time going through this quest. Jumping into team number 4, very similar team, right? We're sticking to Rangiku. 8th Anniversary Ichigo again, not replaceable here other than Rukia. I don't have Rukia, but now this time we chose to bring Kyoge. So the same reason why we brought Kyoge with Bruno is the same reason why we're bringing him with Rangiku. If we're forced to use a hard character, well then Kyoge is going to be a great third character in slot number 3, just to make your first character even better, since you are getting the recharge in between stages, so your strong attacks are coming back right from the get-go. With this though, especially when playing with Rangiku, you're able to be a bit more hectic, not position your strong attacks as correctly, you just get to spam them, and usually since Rangiku has a high damage output, after using 3 strong attacks almost all the way through to upwards to stage 20, after using 3 strong attacks, almost everyone is dead. So you're able to clear these a lot easier stages significantly faster when compared to Bruno, for example, where, you know, when the gauge isn't active, your damage output isn't nearly as high. Rangiku, since she is getting more bonuses here, her damage output is able to carry her through all the way upwards to stage 20. Jumping into team number 5, this one I will say is a tad bit difficult, and in a way, this is the first character we are using here that is more built in terms of Transcendence. Every other character we have been using, especially level 1, SP level 10. With Aizen though, given that he is 2 years old at this point, his damage output, while respectable, isn't nearly as high as the other characters we have been using. So if you are using Aizen, ideally you do want to have him max Transcended, otherwise this team really isn't going to work. But since he is a ranged character, he is getting that 2 times damage output. Doesn't get the benefit of having killer effect here, unfortunately, but he does actually work here, especially and most importantly when you pair him with Kyoge. With this team, again, just like Rangiku and Bruno, when paired with Kyoge, Aizen's strong attacks are ready to go right from the get-go, and this is most so needed with this character, given that his damage output isn't nearly as high as the other 2 characters we have been using in slot number 1. Again, that's why we have to have the character max Transcended. His damage output, though, is fairly consistent, and I chose to not use my summon on Aizen stage. Instead, I chose to use it on Kyoge stage, and Kyoge is a good character to use your summon with, since he does actually apply the drain against every enemy. His summon does hit relatively hard too with the Rampage skill, but since you are applying drain, it then means you're able to do 40% more damage against every enemy that's on the fields. You definitely are pushing it, though. I will say you have to play this one very strategically. Any mistakes can actually cost you the run, I will be honest, because you'll see, at least in my particular run, we barely just made it into stage 20, getting the stage 19 rewards with this particular team. I know not everyone will have 6th anniversary eyes and Max Transcended, that's understandable, but he has been in the game for 2 years, and he has been in like, what, 3 anniversary banners now? So many people might have this character Transcended, Max Transcended, and it might be worth a shot. That then takes us into our final team, team number 6. Again, we opt in to use Rangiku for slot number 1. She's the best character for slot number 1 if you don't own Valentine's Day Riruka. And what we're doing here is using 1000 Year Blood or Yamamoto, keep in mind Max Transcended, and also Yuha Buck. Now, the reason this team actually does work is for mainly the fact that, one, Yama has a really high damage soul bomb. You know, SP boost, bombardment, weaken defense. That's going to allow you to get through his more difficult stage significantly faster, given that you just almost nuke all the way through it. And we're able to do that because Yuha does let us have 2 soul bombs. So that's the reason why this team does work. Again, if you have SP level 10, focus level 10 on Yuha, and also Rangiku, this team is even better. It's a lot faster. But if you are using Yamamoto, I do recommend almost having him Max Transcended, given that, you know, he isn't getting the range damage times 2, he isn't getting the killer effect times 5, he's only getting the power damage times 2, one of the 3 buffs you can potentially get. Surprisingly, though, this team did work, and it ultimately comes down to 1, Rangiku just being a good character in slot number 1, 2, Yamamoto having a very high damaging soul bomb, and then also Yuha allowing us to use 2 soul bombs, where he was then able to clear his stage a tad bit faster too. I didn't try the team, but maybe you could potentially swap out Yuha for someone like Kyogre, and the team might actually work. With that though, lads, that was the 6 teams I was able to use today to get upwards to stage 20, aka stage 19, where you are able to get all the rewards, transcendence points, and also orbs. This one was kind of difficult, I'm not gonna lie. Again, I had to use very similar characters. We overall used around 8 different characters across the 6 different teams. I would love to use more characters, but again, the options are very limited here. Not as limited, and there are other characters you could have brought. For example, I could have used Yachiru Unohana in slot number 3, and she honestly would be relatively good here. So there are some other characters that can brute force their way through it. It definitely comes down to your account, what character you do own, and also what transcendence level they have. I didn't try Yachiru, but I know this team in particular would easily get to stage 20, even if I did remove Yachiru's transcendence slots. Either way though, hope you liked and enjoyed the video. See you guys next time. Take care and peace.